Imagine you've written a piece of copy that is factually perfect and grammatically flawless. Every verification is complete. Yet, for some reason, your reader's eyes begin to drift away after the first paragraph. This happens because of an over-reliance on literal language. When writing is purely functional and straightforward, it optimizes for clarity, which is excellent for an instruction manual, but disastrous for maintaining interest in a world saturated with data. Our brains process literal information passively. Data moves through our working memory without firing secondary synapses, leaving no lasting impression. Figurative language provides friction, forcing the brain into active engagement as it decodes imagery. This shift in approach ensures that your message doesn't just pass through the reader's mind, but actually anchors itself within their long-term memory. Retaining information starts with the brain's natural drive to recognize patterns. Before we even process the meaning of a sentence, we react to its sound. This is why alliteration is so effective. By repeating starting consonant sounds, you build a structural rhythm into the prose that makes a sequence of words feel more like a cohesive unit. Think of a phrase like, "She sells seashells by the seashore." That rhythmic repetition acts as a mental adhesive, sticking to the reader's memory much longer than a literal description of someone selling items on a beach. Onomatopoeia takes this a step further by bypassing abstract logic. When you use words that mimic their actual sounds, like the sizzle of bacon, you trigger a direct sensory memory in the reader, making the scene feel immediate. By focusing on sound and rhythm, you're essentially making the text audible in the reader's mind, which drastically increases how much they pay attention to each sentence. Beyond sound, you can keep a reader alert by introducing cognitive friction. The brain is programmed to wake up when it encounters the unexpected or the contradictory. Antithesis leverages this by placing two opposing ideas side by side. Charles Dickens used this to great effect, framing a story through the best of times and the worst of times simultaneously. That contrast creates an immediate tension. It forces the mind to balance two conflicting realities at once, which makes the point you're making feel more dramatic and significant. A similar effect occurs with a paradox, a statement that seems to contradict itself but contains a deeper truth. It acts as a mental roadblock, forcing the reader to stop and resolve the logic before moving on. Creating this kind of friction prevents the reader from skimming. They have to actively invest mental energy to resolve the tension you've built into the prose. The most effective way to engage a reader is to let them participate in the storytelling. You do this by leaving certain things unsaid, forcing them to perform the final act of interpretation. Research into memory retention shows why this matters. Studies have found that information delivered through epigrams, short, clever observations, is remembered up to 3 times longer than the same information delivered through standard, literal prose. Consider how Eleanor Roosevelt utilized the epigram. By stating that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, she provided a concise insight that requires the reader to connect the dots themselves. This preference for indirectness is reflected in wider engagement data. On sensitive topics, reader engagement can climb as much as 67% when writers use irony or euphemism to highlight the gap between expectation and reality. You see this in the use of leitotes, where a double negative, like saying someone is no fool, actually strengthens a positive point. It relies on a shared cultural understanding, creating a sense of understated confidence that readers find compelling. Turning the audience into active participants ensures that your ideas are not just consumed, but fully integrated into their understanding. All of these techniques serve a single purpose: to pack as much truth into as little space as possible. A single metaphor can often communicate more than a page of literal description. However, these elements must be used with restraint. If you clutter every sentence with complex imagery, you risk exhausting your reader's attention instead of capturing it. Avoid the trap of circumlocution, talking in circles without reaching a point. When writers use excessive words to avoid being direct, readability scores drop by an average of 15%, leaving the audience confused and frustrated. Audit your own writing, emails, posts, or professional copy. Look for opportunities where a literal statement can be replaced by a more rhythmic or contrasting structure. By leaning into these biological preferences for rhythm and friction, you ensure that your writing is never just seen, it is remembered.